The Montreal Canadiens find themselves in a bit of a predicament heading into this next season, although it's not such a bad thing. I'll be going over all of the details of this little predicament that the Montreal Canadiens have in this video, but before we get into it, we notice that 97.2% of you guys are not subscribed to the channel, so if you guys are looking for a place to catch up on all the news around the NHL and around your favorite team, you're in the right place. Make sure to stay a while, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the breaking news coming this season. But like I said, the Montreal Canadiens have a predicament, but it's not a bad thing. They have a lot of players coming out of this rebuild, from acquiring them this year, from having them on the team previously, and just heading into the new direction they're heading, where they're coming to the end of this rebuild session that they've been having over the past few years. They need to get some players, get some players moving. I'll show you right here. Their cap right now is at negative $4.7 million. Now, that's how many teams are at this point in the NHL season. Heading into camp, they don't really have any roster set yet, so they have a lot of people on the roster, figuring out who will make it into the regular season, who will make it onto the regular roster, and who won't. So we're not going to look too deep into this right now, but this just pretty much means that the Canadiens are going to have to make some moves heading into this season. And I think that there's going to be a few moves that will have to be made of some players that people might not be happy with. But Montreal Canadiens, like I said, are definitely going to have to make a few moves. Their cap is pretty high, and they have a very, very deep roster of players that are in the NHL and players that aren't in the NHL. So I'll be going over a few players in this video who I think may be on their way out for the Montreal Canadiens, and some possible positions and some possible acquisitions they may need to make over this next season, and heading deeper into their final bits of the rebuild, hoping to get back into a playoff spot. So I'll pull up here. These are just the forward contracts that they have right now. There's a few contracts here that are not what Montreal really wants. Two of those being Josh Anderson and Brendan Gallagher. I don't think Brendan Gallagher at this moment is a player Montreal's are going to be able to get rid of very easily, but it's something that I think Montreal might want to get rid of after, I'd say after this season, maybe going into the seasons after. But right now, I think Montreal not going to move Brendan Gallagher. You know, he's a guy on this team who's been here for forever, frankly. Get these young guys that Montreal have right now, and some young guys that are going to be moved into this roster. I think he's a good example for those players. You know, he knows he's a very big part of this team. He loves being in Montreal, and Montreal loves him. But Josh Anderson, Christian Dvorak, and Yoel Armia, I think the possibility of three of these guys, not all together being moved, but maybe a combination of both, or at least one of them being moved out of this team, is quite likely. They're all making a pretty penny, I'll say, on this team. You know, Josh Anderson more so than Christian Dvorak and Yoel Armia. But two of those guys, in Dvorak and Armia, both have 2 years left on their contracts, and Josh Anderson being 4. And I think heading into the way this Montreal team is headed, these contracts are not going to be on the favor of the side of Montreal. So I think at some point, these contracts might have to move. A lot of talk has been recently about Josh Anderson potentially being moved. I think he is the likely of the three at this very moment, due to his contract being $5.5 million and 4 years as well. But Dvorak and Armia, 2 years remaining. Maybe Montreal can, stick those out. I don't think they're going to be making any playoffs push in the next 2 years. It certainly doesn't seem like it at this point. But I think Josh Anderson may be the next guy on this team to get moved on the forward side of things. Lots of guys on the offense for Montreal under contract, the prospects. You can see here, a lot of these guys are going to start making their way into the NHL. I think one guy I would really like to see in the NHL this year, or maybe even not whether it's for a few games or make his way in there the season after, is Joshua Roy. He's a very good player. Sean Farrell as well. I think both these guys could potentially make it to an NHL roster at some point, whether it's this season, whether it's next season. But I think they're going to have to start making some room on offense for these younger guys to feed them in. But I can see, I'll pull up the forwards again here for a moment. Those three are really the likely ones that I see being moved out of this forward core soon enough. Because we also have some guys in the IR. I'll also pull up that screenshot here again of the players. On the bottom there, you can see just pretty much they're everybody young on this team. These are non-rostered players in the AHL, ECHL, whatnot, that are under contract. But with this one here, you can see their IR players on the bottom. Cole Caulfield, Sean Monahan, Uri Slavkovsky, the three forwards on this, not being included on that roster. So I think that, there's some guys that are going to be having to be pushed out. Three of those, I think, are the likely players for the offense. But as well on defense, there are also going to be some players I think will need to be moved out. One of those, I think people, especially Montreal fans, might not like. I think it's Arber Xhekaj. He's on the IR in this one, but you can see Montreal is a very heavy defense as well, including David Reinbacher on this team, on the NHL roster at this point. But we don't. He seemingly will be on this team to start the season. We'll be unsure if he'll be there come the end of the season. But they have also some very good defensemen, very good young defensemen that are starting to be some normals on this team. I know Caden Gooley's been up for a while. David Reinbacher stays. It's a good one. Jordan Harris has also been up a while. But I think that, Yuri Slafkovsky, Arber Xhekaj, don't really have a spot on this team in my mind right now. He's a very good defenseman, I guess, in a certain way, in his own way, in his respective physical way, fighting. But I just don't think that he'll have a long-term place on this team. And I know some Montreal fans really like him. A lot of Montreal fans really like him. But it just don't seem like the right spot right now for him. I'll pull up the under contract players again as well here. You can see Logan Mailloux, he's been cleared to play. Jaden Struble, Matthias Norlander, they have some very good guys I think can make an NHL roster. I think Arber Xhekaj might be on this team for a while, but he might be also gone at some point. Maybe trading these guys for current picks. Montreal could probably use a number 2 center as well. Those are the main concerns really for Montreal right now. They don't need too much, but the big part of the Montreal situation right now that I know a lot of people are talking about is their goaltending situation. They have 4 goalies that could possibly play in the NHL. You can have Caden Primo, who's currently in the AHL, as well as, let me find it here, sorry, Jake Allen, Casey DeSmith, and Samuel Montembeault. 3 of those guys will likely split time this year if Casey DeSmith doesn't get traded. Casey DeSmith, the one I think likely will be traded. They've already traded Jeff Petrie coming out of that trade that they got Erik Karlsson in, and they also got him. I don't think, he'll be on the team too long, along with Jake Allen. 2 of those guys may not be ideal for Montreal's fit right now. I think they need a number 1 goalie. Not yet, because they're not going for any playoff contention yet. They're not going for a Stanley Cup yet, so I think that these guys will be traded before their contract expires. Jake Allen might stick out the year again, but Casey DeSmith, I don't see him being on this team by the end of the year. That's pretty much just what I think, but, big years from Slafkovsky needs to happen, and they just need some big years from other players as well. Cole Caulfield, he's going to get a redemption year after being hurt. Nick Suzuki as well, he's going to have another big year, and I think this team is going to be very good. They're giving Alex Newhook a clean slate. The Montreal forward core is looking very good. The defensemen looking solid, and the defense and goaltending, they'll work. They'll work for now for what they need. Montreal's heading in the right direction very quickly. I got to say, from what they did at the Stanley Cup there a few years ago, rebuilding and heading to the direction now, very quick. They got some good players out of what they were looking for. And, I think it's just what they're going to be doing over the next few seasons, over the next, this season as well, over the next few weeks, months. A few moves are going to be made to get this team a bit better for this year, and then Montreal will in a pretty good spot. But, I think a number 2 center Montreal could use, potentially after Dvorak might not be here. Monahan's getting old. Jake Evans, I don't really see him as a number 2 center. So, maybe a number 2 center Montreal could get out of any of these guys I mentioned, possibly leaving in Josh Anderson, Christian Dvorak, Yoel Armia, because Montreal has some very good prospects on the forward. Arber Xhekaj, David Savard, another name I didn't mention on defense that we could see be heading away from this team. He's getting up there in age, not really fitting the style that Montreal is at the moment. $3.5 million for 2 more years. I don't think he'll be here. Maybe Arber Xhekaj, David Savard be leaving this team as well. And Jake Allen, Casey DeSmith, 2 of the likely goalies I see leaving this team. Samuel Montembeault, he's proven himself as a very good goalie on a not-so-good team last season as well. You could buy his play. And Caden Primo's also in a kind of weird spot, where he's been with this organization for a good while. He's had a few opportunities, but he really hasn't had enough to be able to prove himself. So I think those 2 guys will be on the team for a while. But Jake Allen, Casey DeSmith, I do expect a trade with those guys. Not so much Jake Allen, but Casey DeSmith at some point during this season. They don't really need him. A few teams will be interested in him as well, I believe. That, making a way to a half-decent starter for a team that don't really have a goalie. We know that there are a few top-tier goalies on the trade market as well. So we'll be seeing what will happen throughout this season and throughout the next season with the Montreal Canadiens on this situation. But they got a few guys that they need to move. It's not such a bad thing because they have a lot of young guys coming up. So it's not much of a predicament, more so than flexibility is the best way to put it. But that's all I got for this video. Let me know in the comments below what you think Montreal should do with some of the names I said, whether you think they should be traded, where you think they might go if they do end up going somewhere. Love to hear it, love to see the input. Thank you for watching. Like I said at the beginning of the video, subscribe if you don't want to miss anything NHL related, your favorite team related, and make sure to like the video if you did enjoy it. It lets us know that you like the content. But thank you for watching. That's all I got. See you later.